Hey guys, I've recently finished leveling my warrior, and after many requests, I decided to make a leveling guide. I'm by no means some galaxy-brained warrior, however I put a ton of time into finding out what I think is the best way to level a warrior in Season of Discovery. I'll make an updated guide when Phase 2 comes out where the leveling cap goes up to 40. Before we begin, I want to shout out the Warrior Discord Fight Club, where you can find people much smarter than I am in there all day theory crafting all types of warrior stuff. Okay, to start, contrary to popular belief, warrior actually felt pretty good to level. I had very little downtime and you had no troubles with most quests, and I felt pretty safe fighting most mobs. A lot of the times one-on-one you kill the mob before he barely does any damage to you, and you can handle 2 mobs pretty safely as well. It's only when you try to handle 3 or more mobs that I'd actually have to reassess the situation and play it safely. There was 2 main things that made my leveling journey pretty smooth. The first one is the boon of Black Fathom. I didn't have this buff up full time, but the times that I had it, I quite literally felt impossible. It's rather easy to obtain since you can simply set your Hearthstone to whatever zone you're in, then go to Darnassus of your Alliance or Thunderbluff of your Horde, and then get the buff, which drops quite literally every 2 minutes or so, depending on the time of day. There's also a ton of Warlocks sitting there at both cities summoning people to get the buff for a few silver if you want to go there even faster. The second main thing was having a decent weapon, specifically a 2-handed weapon thanks to a rune that you can get rather early called Frenzied Assault, which gives you 20% attack speed when using a 2-hander. This isn't the only reason that you use a 2-hander, but it's up there on the list. Now by decent weapon, I just mean stopping by the auction house and picking up a green BOE off the auction house every 5 levels or so. And don't worry, they're actually really cheap at the lower levels. You don't have to go there every time you level to buy a new one, although feel free if you can afford it. You just want to keep it updated as you go about your zones, since your entire leveling experience will be based off of the damage you do. The more damage you do not only kills the mob faster, but also gives you more rage, allowing you to continue killing things faster with minimal downtime. I recommend getting one at level 5 as soon as you can. Then just pick up another one when you can afford it whenever you come into town to train or for whatever reason. As for which weapon, any of the BOEs with the of the tiger suffixes are the best since they have strength and agi on them, but those tiger BOEs will always be the most expensive for that same reason. Of the bear is another good one since it's strength and stamina, giving you some more health while making you stronger as well. And then of the strength will have only strength on them, and it's another one that's usually cheaper than the previous 2. And of course there's also the strength and spirit ones, which work out pretty good as well. If you're low on gold, just pick up any of the weapons that you can get, no matter what the classification is or the stats on it. The stats are just a bonus to make things a little more easy. Once you hit level 20, you'll be able to dual wield. While you can definitely dual wield if you want, it's just better to use a 2-hander. It felt like ass trying to dual wield while leveling when I tried it. You'll find yourself missing much more often due to the hit penalty of dual wielding with a weapon in your offhand, and with hit being so hard to find while leveling, it makes rage generation feel really bad in my opinion. Using 2-handers does more damage, meaning you will also gain more rage. Dual wield is still viable and definitely do it if you want to. I'm just suggesting that you use a 2-hander for smoother leveling. Another reason I like 2-handers is because you get a rune in your leg called Frenzied Assault, which gives you 20% attack speed whenever you have a 2-hander on, making you hit faster, which is definitely really nice while leveling. As for armor, obviously armor is great for leveling as it makes you not only tankier, but also supply some great stats to make you do more damage or even give you some more stamina. I'm not going to waste your time talking about all the different slots and stats. Just feel free to check out the auction house for cheap mail gear to fill in the slots that you might not have found while leveling. If you're not really hurting for gold, you can also get some consumables to use while leveling to make it smoother, like Elixir of Lion Strength, Elixir of Minor Agility, Troll's Blood Potions for HP 5, scrolls of all kinds, and of course Rage Potions and Health Potions. Honestly, I didn't use too much of these consumables outside of a stack of cheap potions just as an oh shit button, but it's available if you can afford it. Now more about the leveling. Warriors have been known to be rough to level when it comes to Classic, however since the level cap is currently only level 25, you won't have too many troubles at all. You lack any kind of healing outside of Victory Rush, which is a very powerful rune that you get right away as your first rune, which does some solid damage but also heals you for 10% of your maximum health. But you can only use this after you get the killing blow on an enemy that gives experience or honor. Other than that, you won't have much help healing yourself outside of sitting and eating or using bandages from first aid or health potions that you find in the open world, get from quests, or on the auction house. Unless of course you're leveling with someone that can heal you, and if you are, then you'll really feel unstoppable as you'll be able to chain pull non-stop with an endless rage pool. As for the talent build, with the level cap only at level 25, you don't have too many talents to work with and you can't really go deep enough to get anything too crazy. You have many options to put your points into, but going mostly down the arms tree is what felt the best. My first 5 points I would put into Cruelty and Fury, as this gives you 5% crit. The more you crit, the more damage you do and the more rage you gain, so this was an easy choice. The rest of the points goes into the arms tree, starting with improved Rend, which makes your Rend do more damage. In my honest opinion, Rend isn't that good while leveling, at least at the lower levels, because mobs are dying far too fast for you to get value out of the full bleed. But the real reason is because you get a rune called Blood Frenzy rather early, which gives you 3 rage whenever your bleeds do damage to the target, and even though it's not much rage, it's better than nothing. You also want to put the 3 into Improved Rend so you can end up getting Deep Wounds eventually, as it requires all 3 Improved Rend points. My next 2 points I put into Deflection for some parry and to unlock the next tier. You won't be using Heroic Strike much at all once you get Sunder Armor at level 10, so Improved Heroic Strike is just not worth it. My next 2 points I put them in an Improved Charge, as this gives you more rage when you charge, which you'll be charging into almost every mob, assuming it's off cooldown. It's only 6 rage, but like I said, any rage is better than none. After that, I put 3 more points into Deflection for some more parry and to unlock Deep Wounds, and then I put my last point into Deep Wounds. You can opt to put some points in the Tactical Mastery instead of Deflection or Imp Charge. This will allow you to keep some rage when you change stances. The only reason I didn't take this is because I very rarely, if at all, change stances while leveling in the open world. I didn't feel the need to swap the defensive stance much. You do have an interrupt with Shield Bash, which is nice, but to be honest, the few caster mobs I saw, I didn't even bother kicking. I just ate the damage and killed them. You can also swap stances to shield block, but I didn't have to do that once. However, if you plan to tank some dungeons while leveling, then you can definitely get some value out of Tactical Mastery if you plan to use defensive stance. But to be honest, I tanked all my dungeons in battle stance with relative ease, outside of Mage's AoE because Living Flame is wild. But yeah, like I said, feel free to flex some points in the Tactical Mastery if you feel like you can get some value out of it. Next up is the runes, and you have some really solid runes that you can use while leveling to make your journey quite smooth. The first one is your glove rune, Victory Rush. As said earlier, this is an amazing rune that does decent damage and heals you for 10% of your maximum health. This can only be used after you get the killing blow on an enemy that gives you experience or honor. This rune alone made leveling super cozy. It supplies a nice amount of healing per use and has some very solid rage generation, as you should have it up on most mobs, although you won't have it up for every mob since at times you're killing things faster than the 8-second cooldown, especially if you have world buffs. Your leg rune will be Frenzied Assault. This is an amazing rune that gives you 20% attack speed whenever you have a 2-hander on, which should be all the time. This rune is rather easy to obtain at level 10, and each faction just has you go beat someone up in your major city. I would say this rune is mandatory, so try to get it as soon as you can. Be careful when you fight the guy though. He's only level 10, but he has like 3 times as much health as a normal level 10 mob, and he hits hard. Look for help if you can. There will be other warriors there, and if not, you'll be in a major city, so it won't be hard to ask somebody for some help. The chest rune I feel like is the most lackluster of runes. You do have a couple options to choose from. The first and probably main one is Blood Frenzy. This simply gives you 3 rage whenever your bleeds do damage, which is largely your rend, and eventually when you get high enough level, the talent Deep Wounds. The only problem with this is rend not only does so little damage, but the mobs also die so fast that I barely got any value out of rend. So most of the time I never even used rend on the target. Although I did like to put up a rend and let it finish off the mob while you run to the next one. Another option, and the main reason I never really rended much to be fair, was the rune Flagellation. This is a level 25 rune that'll be impossible to get by yourself at the lower levels unless you have guildies or friends to help you with it. You can also find a decent amount of warriors trying to get this in general chat, as well as you can simply whisper somebody that's in Duskwood at one of the level 25s until you luck out with someone who's willing to help you, because it really doesn't take long to get. This rune gives you 25% damage for 12 seconds after you use Blood Rage. If you can get this, I'd suggest using this. If you can't get it, then just use Blood Frenzy. For professions, I personally didn't use any while leveling outside of first aid, which I'd say is mandatory because the cloths are very cheap on the auction house to level first aid up, and it's a very quick heal, leading to much less downtime sitting and eating. Outside of that, you can opt to go engineering for some extra damage from dynamites and bombs, as well as target dummies to help you taunt if you pull too many mobs. Mining pairs good with this if you're not in a hurry, helping you save money and not have to buy the engineering mats from the auction house. Another option is skinning and leatherworking, since you can, if you want, craft the epic gloves from leatherworking, and skinning will save you some money from not having to buy the leather off the auction house. Blacksmithing is nice as well because you can make sharpening stones, which you can put on your weapons to deal more damage, but to be honest, those sharpening stones are super cheap on the auction house, so I would just buy some sharpening stones. For your rotation, it's rather smooth and simple. Under level 10, just charge in and then Victory Rush once you get Victory Rush, then Heroic Strike and melee the mob while waiting for more rage to Heroic Strike, or just rend the target and move on to the next one like I said. I mentioned it later, but I like the macro start attack into my Heroic Strike, so I just press Heroic Strike once and I'll automatically start hitting the mob rather than needing to right click or press attack separately. Like I said, you can rend if you want, but at this level, mobs die far too fast for it in my opinion. However, like I mentioned just a second ago, I like to rend sometimes and let the rend kill off the enemy when the enemy's low, and then I just move to the next one so I can pull rage. For level 10 and higher rotation, I charge in, I use Victory Rush, and then I put up a rend if you're using the Blood Frenzy rune, then I sunder 2 or 3 times and hit the mob until it's low on health, and then move on to the next mob. If you're not rending, then finish the mob off and run to the next one. Once you hit level 12, you'll get Overpower. This can only be used after the target dodges, and I have a weak order track when it procs, and I use it whenever possible. While I'm not 100% sure if it's worth the overpower, I prefer it, since it only costs 5 rage and is free damage at that point. Once you get cleave at level 20, I prefer to pull 2 mobs together if at all possible and my health is okay, and I cleave while centering both mobs in between and of course using overpower. If you're using the flagellation rune, make sure to blood rage as often as you can, but make sure you charge in first and then use blood rage, because you're considered in combat while blood rage is active, so you won't be able to charge since you can't charge in combat. I use Demoralizing Shout whenever I pull more than 1 mob, as this reduces their attack power, making them deal less damage. It's minor, but it helps a little bit. Thunderclap is also another option, but I very rarely use this, if at all. Also at level 20, you get Retaliation, which is a huge 30-minute cooldown that counterattacks any enemy that hits you in melee. This does a shit ton of damage, and I use it when I pull 2 or 3 mobs. Remember, you also have a fear for those oh shit moments with Intimidating Shout, and for the love of God, do not execute. This just wastes all your rage, just it dumps the remainder into the attack, and the point when leveling is to pool rage for the next mob. Hamstring is an amazing ability that will slow your target upon hitting them. This can be used to escape sketchy situations, and also when pulling more than 1 mob, I like to hamstring kite the ones I'm not attacking to avoid damage while finishing off my main target. For add-ons, there's a ton that you can use that are personal preference, and I'm not going to go into all of those as this is just a warrior guide, but if you like my UI and add-ons that you've seen throughout the video, I recently made a video on how to set it all up with all the add-ons and links to them in the description. I'll put a link to the video in the description as well. Feel free to go and pick and choose which add-ons you want. For warrior specific add-ons, I honestly just suggest weak auras, like this one in the middle of my screen, which I'll link in the description as well. This will keep track of everything you need, like your Ren timers, your cooldowns, victory rush, battle shout, overpower procs, literally everything. This one is from Foji, and he requires that you are a Patreon to obtain all his add-ons, which is like $4 or something like that. I'll also link a free one that is close to the same underneath, so if you don't want to pay, okay? I also highly suggest a leveling add-on, specifically Rested XP, but not just for the route, but because there's a new rune section of the guide that will track and tell you where to find each rune, which is super dope in my opinion. The guide is free from 1 to 20, including the entire rune guide, so you can get it for free. You can of course pay and get the rest of the add-on for future phases and use code CRIX to get it cheaper. Lastly, some parting tips, which I touched on in the guide, but I would like to put some emphasis on. Get first aid and keep it updated. It saves a ton of time. Use Sunder Armor and don't use Heroic Strike much. To be honest, if you wanted, you could literally take Heroic Strike off your bars. Sunder Armor is severely underrated and slept on. I know it sounds strange, but trust me, use Sunder Armor. Check the auction house frequently for green two-handed BOEs or dual-wield weapons if you really want to dual-wield. Either way, just update your weapons as often as your money allows. Bonus points if you can upgrade your gear, but not nearly as important as your weapon. Keybind hamstring to a comfortable keybind and use it often. I use caps lock, for example. This will save your life and also make you take less damage when using it to kite. Always charge and then use blood rage. Many times I would do it backwards, and you cannot charge while in combat. Blood rage acts like you're in combat. Make sure to use an add-on or weak aura to track victory rush and battle shout. Both are very important to your leveling process. Lastly, macro start attack into all your abilities. This will ensure that you start swinging instead of having to right click and press attack. You can macro this into your Heroic Strike, your Ren, your Cleave, your Charge, or pretty much any ability that you want. Just make sure you do it. A good tip is when you get high enough level to do Dead Mines, you can kind of sit in there for a while and try to get Smite's Hammer. This is a really good two-hand, and the best part is you get good experience from Dead Mines too, so you can kind of just do as many Dead Mines runs as you need to get it. It's RNG if it drops, but if you get it, it will help you a ton leveling. Make sure to use your throw weapon or bow and arrows or whatever it is, that whatever combination of range that you have. This can help you pull a lot of things instead of having to charge in and pull 2 or 3 mobs. A lot of the times you can throw your weapon at it or shoot it, and you can pull 1 at a time. It'll help you not body aggro other things. And this goes without saying, but try to avoid fighting orange mobs. You want to fight green and yellow mobs, with green being the best because you just chunk through green mobs. Obviously yellow mobs are fine, and a majority of the mobs that you will fight are green and yellow. But if you're using a Rested XP or any other leveling guide, I like to try to stay like a level above it so I don't have any trouble fighting anything. Well, that's it for this one. I'm sure there can be much more to say, but I'm not trying to take too much more of your time. This is my first of many warrior guides, and I plan to do them throughout Season of Discovery, so make sure to follow the channel if you like the video. I stream my gameplay over on Twitch at twitch.tv/CrixVibes, and I'll be doing a warrior raid guide here in a few days. Good luck on your leveling journey, and I'll see you guys soon.